You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I'm concerned about something that perhaps is beyond a first world problem. I think it's like such a tiny percentage of a first world problem. That's how minute this is. But have you thought about parties and small talk? I used to be very good at this, but I have nothing to talk about anymore at all. Nothing. I've done nothing. I could talk about things I'd like to do, and also I feel rather out of practice with the whole idea of conversing with people I haven't been seeing for a while. I don't know.
I'm totally feeling that, because the other day someone sort of was related to a work thing, was like, oh, we could have a meeting for this, or we could meet up for coffee to discuss this. And I was just like, meeting up for coffee just sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot.
Will I have to put on pants? And I'll have to fix my face, and
you have to make an appointment and be somewhere on time and go somewhere. And then there's a whole bunch of, as you said, small talk you have to think of.
I feel like every time I think about it, I feel like my bones turn to lead. I feel like it's like a disease. I want to be able to phone and say, I'm sorry, I have lead bones. And I can't move. I'm laying on my bed, and I'd love to come. I'd love to, but it's the lead bones, and I just can't.
The old lead bones.
The old lead bones.
I actually was. This happened to me right outside my house. There were some people that I knew who were stopped on my street because they wanted to go to the restaurant that was there, and they called me over. They're old friends, and we were talking. It's the first time I've seen them in 2 years, and suddenly I just couldn't. I had things coming out. I had no idea what I was saying, and I was like, "I'm really sorry, guys. That might be TMI." And they were like, "Everybody's in the same boat right now. It's okay." But my career kind of rests on being able to make small talk. One of my biggest party fouls of all time happened with you, Lisa, the first time we met, because you were talking to somebody in the kitchen of we had a mutual friend having a party, and I came up and heard you speaking, and I was like, you know what? You've got a really good voice for radio. And you just looked at me like I was the dumbest person in the world. And I believe
you were just effing with me too. Okay.
Which would have been possible too. And then you were like, well, I am on the radio. And I felt like such a 24-karat fool. It was phenomenal. So I don't think I'll ever get to that point again. But it could happen. I could do something really dumb.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, because I just don't have any I don't know what to say. How was the pandemic for you?
You can't say what's new or what everybody's been doing. The default has been, are you planning on going anywhere? Yeah. And everybody could sort of bring up their Expedia wish lists and Airbnb wish lists in their minds and say, yes, there's this lovely 2-bedroom place we were looking at staying overnight in Bilbao, or whatever it is you're planning to do. Maybe that's where we just stick to possible travel.
My whole Instagram feed this week seems like people who are vacationing on the Sunshine Coast or in the Gulf
somewhere
Islands.
Close by, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Everyone I know.
All I've got is, what vaccination did you get? Are you double vaccinated by now?
Yeah, I know.
And then you open yourself up to anti-vaxxers and all of that, which
what do you say,
you might
though,
not want to be around.
Yes. What do you say, though, when someone's like, so, how have you been?
I just say,
exactly.
It's late-stage pandemic. How have you been? And I throw it back at him.
Sometimes I do I'm in some kind of rom-com where I go, how have I been? Let me think about that for a minute. How have I been? Well, I went through a pandemic and I broke my foot. So I don't know, which part do you want to dwell on here?
Yeah, I just find there's just an awkward silence. And then I'm just combing my mind, trying to think of anything
I don't want to talk
interesting
about
I can
Netflix
mention?
anymore. I don't want to talk about TV shows I've seen because there's barely anything left that, like, if you haven't seen Succession, I'm sorry for you. Like, that's just, and then I'll just
We can't
turn
be
into that
friends.
person. We can't. Wow, I didn't know you hadn't seen that. Small talk over. I gotta go.
Or someone's like, what's new? And it's like,
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's that's the whole point. We've all been
I got
doing
lead
nothing.
bones. I got lead bones, and I gotta get going. It's not a recognized part of the pandemic, but it might become one. So just be careful. Watch out for it.
Watch out for lead bones.
Yeah, it catches everybody. It
Symptoms include.
Yes, it doesn't discriminate. Anytime during this pandemic, you could get it. But also, it is much easier than saying, oh, I can't come out tonight. My dog is sick. Your dog's sick? Yeah, real sick.
but I also find that, like I used to be out and about doing stuff on any given day. Like, I live in Kits. We go downtown, wander around, do stuff, find lunch, whatever. And now that I've been working from home, like just like going outside and walking a few blocks to the grocery store, it just seems like such a
There's
thing.
an inertia.
And I'm so tired by the idea of walking, 4 blocks to the grocery store.
I don't know if I
walked downtown
anticipated
today.
this. You live downtown.
Well, I live in the West End, but I walked downtown to
I
the
see.
financial
Okay.
district. That was a good
Wow.
20-minute walk there and back. By the way, there's a
Good for
downtown
you.
farmers
Good for
market
you.
now. I don't know if you knew, but apparently
Where?
there's across from the library, the art gallery. So in that plaza between the Hotel Georgia and the
Okay.
art gallery, they were selling blueberries, and then Falun
Oh.
Gong was protesting. So it was very,
Very
there was a
normal
little bit of
day in
this.
Vancouver.
Yeah, it was very much like the old days. Like everything
See,
seemed really normal.
I thought everyone, and that was the kind of feeling I had, is everyone was so excited to finally have everything. And I know there are lots of people out. It's just not me. I'm not doing that.
I mean, I still wear my mask, and I think I'm going to for a while.
Yeah, me too.
Plus, I didn't have a
me too.
cold or a flu for 18 months. I usually get one
know.
every time the weather changes by more than 5 degrees. So
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, there is
And
that.
then I usually have a cough that lingers for like 2 months.
No, I think there's lots to be said for wearing masks and not having to make small talk. So just an apology, anyone listening, if you see me, I'm probably not going to have much to say. I'm going
neither.
to
Me
exhaust
neither.
it here, and that's it.
you
Unless
could,
you want
you could play a recording of this if
Yeah.
people approach you. Just
there you go. I can give you an update on the housewives and how disappointing the pandemic has been on their ability to do anything but go on 5-day vacation places because they can't go anywhere else. And so it has really cramped the style
their
of the
style, and
housewives.
that might be the worst side effect of this pandemic is the effect it's had on the Housewives franchise.
Thank you. Thank you for understanding. I appreciate it. We are tackling our last musical, isn't it? This is it?
Oh, yeah. This is, I think, number 11?
The
Or
curtain
12?
is coming
11.
down on this particular film.
Yes, and there will not be an encore, so don't wait for it, people. Andrea has called this. The house lights are on. Get out.
We had to beg Steven to come back for this last week just to drag our butts over the finish line.
And boy,
I don't
are we
know.
ending it big. So let's start. Hi, I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And I'm Stephen Schelling.
And yes, Andrea Warner is still busy working on a project. I think last week I accidentally said she was not with us anymore, and that was wrong.
She's writing a book.
She's writing a book. Very different.
Specifically, yeah.
But and also pointed out that it was her idea to do the musicals, and now she has missed 2 of them.
Yes.
So, and the one we took on was Cabaret for our final one. Holy Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
It's a
like
big
it's a good way to end it because it seems like a very significant musical to talk about.
I think so. I mean, Stephen, you've been in Cabaret, you have seen Cabaret, you know Cabaret. Where would you put it on the pantheon of great musicals?
I would put it actually as it's at the top. I think it covers a
Really?
whole bunch of really. I'm also a darker person by nature, so I mean, it really this musical appeals to me as a film, like as a piece of art. I like it to be, the darkness of it, but it also it tackled some extremely difficult topics, but it handled them in a musical. When we were talking about Funny Girl, we had people saying it was the best musical of all time, quote unquote. If they'd waited 4 more years, they could have actually talked about something that has, beyond just being a musical, has its own pop culture relevancy that is more than just the fact that it was Liza Minnelli's debut. I mean, the last one that we spoke about was Barbara Streisand's debut, and all we really wanted to talk about or could talk about was Barbara Streisand. This is Liza Minnelli's debut, and it's almost like, yeah, she has a great job, but she's not the whole thing. She's a piece of something much larger, and it won so many Oscars, and it is more than a musical. This is a musical for people that probably don't like musicals, possibly. Andrea will let us know in a moment. But
Yes.
This is a musical that does so much more than just be a musical, if that makes sense.
Well, the music makes sense too. I mean, I think that for a lot of people who don't like musicals, it's just that sort of all of a sudden in an emotional scene breaking out into an awkward song. And if you like musicals, it's not awkward at all. And if you don't, boy, it just drags on and on. So let's go to our musical hater then.
What I'm going to say is that the first time I saw any kind of iteration of Cabaret was on Schitt's Creek
Wow, okay.
when they perform it. The town theater troupe performs it, and I really, now that I've seen the musical, like I think Schitt's Creek actually did a really good job, and like they obviously didn't perform the entire musical within the show, but they did selected numbers, and it was really well done. But yeah, no, I would say Cabaret is probably, like, I was actually pretty blown away by Cabaret for watching the actual thing the first time, because it's very nuanced, it's very layered. There's a really, good story behind it. Liza Minnelli is amazing. There are recognizable songs that, have become part of the pop culture pantheon that, like, most people have heard snippets of one way or another. But yeah, I really enjoyed Cabaret. I think it is a musical for people who hate musicals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And could the camera love Michael York's face more? I don't think it's
chiseled.
possible.
Chiseled.
And his voice?
Yes.
And those, I tell you, that was some divine casting there.
It was, I mean, the whole thing is, the casting is amazing. The changes that they made to the original book to make it into a film are really well done. He still got Candor Nebb to, write new music for the movie, and to write new characters, new scenes. And I mean, and by he, I mean Bob Fosse, master of modern dance, who was directing and won an Oscar for his direction as well, which was, I mean, it overall from end to end, even if you prefer the book musical, which I don't know how you could, but there might be some purists out there who would. The songs from that were not sung on stage, so all those songs like Lisa that you were speaking about, where people break out into song, those are all played on that Victrola. Whenever she plays a new song in the Victrola, those are all songs that appeared in the stage musical.
Oh,
Wow.
That makes
so
sense.
it's really cool. She's doing her little shaky dance to try and get him aroused, I guess. And that song is the song about the old man giving the woman, the landlady, a pineapple, and her being so touched by it and deciding to he doesn't exist in the film, but in the play, that whole song happens in the living room of the house, not on stage. So
Thank goodness you're here, Stephen. You have
yeah,
so much
filling in the
knowledge.
blanks. Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe you knew that.
yeah, and I've also been singing the pineapple song in my head all week as well. So
I guess we should not get too far ahead of ourselves
We should
and
read some of these outlines and
and just tell people a little bit about Stephen in case they haven't been listening to the last couple
oh,
episodes.
they're so done with me. They're going to be so happy when Andrew's back next week.
He joined us for Funny Girl last week and Xanadu the week before that.
we've
So
steadily
we're
been
ending
going
it. Yes,
up for you.
I know
Yeah,
it's been
exactly.
like that Alpen climb on The Price is Right with the yodeling
Yes.
dude. I feel like I'm up at the top now.
Luckily, you won't have to fall over. This is
Exactly. Well, I know the price of a pack of rice-a-roni, so I think we're going to be fine.
it. And you want a new car.
I know with California emissions.
Yes,
Don't forget.
lovely.
Yes.
So I
So-
can. Do you want to
but
tell
hold
us about
on.
yourself? Yeah, sorry, Stephen.
Yeah.
Tell us again, because
Oh.
that we like.
I guess, what do I usually say? That I'm a professional gadabout, that I work in PR and in fashion styling and a whole bunch of different things because I get bored easily. I'm one of those people. And I am currently trying to figure out how quickly I can get back to France without actually having to see any of my relatives while I'm there. And to work on research for the book that I'm vaguely working on, but not really. And I am, again, you're welcome, listeners, the person that brought Andrea and Lisa together. Hold your applause till the end. Thank you.
Well, thank you again and again
Oh.
for joining us. All right, so I'll do the background if that's okay, and then someone
Yeah.
else can take on the synopsis. Okay, Cabaret is a 1972 American musical drama film directed by Bob Fosse and starring Liza Minnelli, Michael York, and Joel Grey. Set in Berlin during the Weimar Republic in 1931 under the presence of the growing Nazi Party, the film is loosely based on the 1966 Broadway musical Cabaret by Kander and Ebb, which was adapted from Christopher Isherwood's semi-autobiographical novel The Berlin Stories, 1945, and the 1951 play I Am a Camera, adapted from the same work. That is such a confusing bunch of facts there.
There's a lot going on.
Luckily, it resulted in Cabaret. So the film brought Minnelli, daughter of Judy Garland and Vincent Minnelli, her own first chance to sing on screen, and she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, with Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor for Joel Grey, Best Director Fosse, Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Sound, Best Original Score and Adaptation, and Best Film Editing. This is interesting. Cabaret holds the record for most Oscars earned by a film not honored for Best Picture. How is that even possible? What else could have won Best Picture? Do we know what won that year?
I think it was The Godfather.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
Well, fine then. I was all ready to be incensed, and now I just.
Just have to go. All right. Okay, whoever wants to take on synopsis then.
In Berlin in 1931, American cabaret singer Sally Bowles meets British academic Brian Roberts, who is finishing his university studies. Despite Brian's confusion over his sexuality, the pair become lovers, but the arrival of the wealthy and decadent playboy Maximilian Van Hoon complicates matters for them both. This love triangle plays out against the rise of the Nazi Party and the collapse of the Weimar Republic. That's from Rotten Tomatoes.
It seems somehow inadequate, that synopsis. Like it does, yes, but I don't know. There's just so much more going on. Like I don't know.
I mean, I think
With
it's
the
a fair
Cabaret and-
synopsis if you, you have to sort of decide who your main characters are, and I think it makes a very strong point that the main characters are Sally and Brian,
Yes.
and then you've got the Max in there. I think it would
We
be
got
hard
their
in
other
the
two
synopsis.
friends too. The other two friends.
Oh yeah, the other two. Well, there's Fritz. Is it Fritz?
Fritz and
Marissa Berenson's character.
Yeah, Natalia.
Natalia, and so they don't exist in the play. Sort of Fritz is sort of Ernst from the play, but she doesn't really exist as such. There's a whole bunch of things that are cut out and moved around, but I think it makes it that much stronger. Most people I know, even though they enjoy doing the show or being in the show or reading or watching the show on Broadway or in musical format, the movie is so much stronger in so many ways because it has an atmosphere that you can't, this atmosphere of menace that you can't necessarily bring to the stage version that that infuses this entire movie. And if you watch the stage version, depending on who's doing it, I would say the MC comes across as almost funny and apolitical and goofy. But if you watch the Joel Grey version, it's almost like he's a bad guy. You just don't know it till far later on, just how gross and evil he is. I'd say that I've seen it on Broadway once, the Sam Mendes version with Alan Cumming playing the MC. And that was, I'd never seen the MC quite played like that. He hypersexualized him. And it was so dark, like just so dark. And I think that you don't see musicals going dark a lot. So that's one of the things that makes this one stand out so much.
Oh yeah, it's just a really hypnotic film. It's a strange mix of being extremely grounded and also quite surreal, which is maybe how it felt to be at this crux, this weird period where, we're watching it with all the knowledge of what's about to happen to them, and they don't know any of it. And that is a weird part of the story that it feels like the audience has to bring to it. Would you say?
I think so. It was 72, so it was a good, almost 30 years after the war ended. And so what's going to, everybody knows the story of what was going to happen, at least in terms of what was going to happen coming up. There's a couple of twists and turns that he puts, that Fosse puts in there, again, that aren't in the original, but it's just so, I think that's where the menace comes from, is knowing, but also the way it's filmed and what they're doing and how it's played. I find that there's so many levels to it that the fact that it's a musical and the way he did it was really smart. He kept the music in performances only that were in a stage area or a presentational format. So it feels like sort of a historical drama that happens to have these really cool musical numbers because a couple of the characters are nightclub performers, right? So it always feels like it could happen at any moment, that it was truthful, that it's the real story, as opposed to a musical, like you were saying. There's no Technicolor costumes. No one's plastered on smiling unless they're on stage, being doing their part, and so it feels realistic, I guess. Which
it does.
You don't get to say that much about a musical, right?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
There were very few points in Xanadu where we thought, wow, I can see myself in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I've roller skated into a wall before, but it didn't take me into another dimension.
Well, I was reading that you have to keep in mind the context in which this film was made, and like how Hollywood throughout the 1960s was known for making these kind of big, bloated musicals. And a lot of them were kind of disasters because they didn't do well at the box office and they cost a ton of money to make. Like even Bob Fosse, his previous musical was 1969's Sweet Charity, which was a huge money pit that apparently nearly bankrupted Universal Pictures. And so Cabaret was kind of like, they made it deliberately small scale, and they wanted something that was like not a spectacle. I was reading in an alternate ending. Tim Brayton wrote that just not to mention that the late 1960s, early 1970s were the height of politicized filmmaking in all of the major European, North American film countries. So I think it was exactly the right time for a musical that killed off all its book numbers and told a story about the rise of Nazism in the face of a contented, self-indulgent culture. After all, what could have been more contented and self-indulgent than 1960s Hollywood?
Yeah, the good contrast.
Yeah. I also what they managed to do was, again, we talk about the realism side of it, but I mean, Bob Fosse had done so much for the stage and for dancing. So he really got to play with those numbers. But as a director, he specifically chose, like he went against type. He wanted to make sure that the girls in the orchestra, quote unquote, the come meet the girls part of the song, he chose, he made them look deliberately as bad as possible. They were supposed to look like, they just walked in off the street. That was sort of and the streets are tough streets. And that was kind of the point he was making. The fact that, he had a bisexual main character on screen who admits to it in a joke, actually. When Sally says something like, screw Maximilian, and he goes, well, I do, or the other way around. And that was a big deal. I remember seeing that, I don't know, the first time I saw it and just going, oh, wow. Oh, okay. I mean, and you think back 72 on film. Yeah. Having a gay character in a mainstream movie, that's a pretty big deal. But with a relatively well-known young actor portraying a character who admits to bisexuality in 72, that's a big deal. So they did a lot of things that were counter to the big Hollywood musical, the perfect lighting, the ultra colors, the perfect hair, and although arguably Liza's hair is perfect. She kept that hair for another 10 years.
I was going to ask you about that, Steven.
Yeah, it's still there, but but the peak isn't quite as peaky.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask you about that, Steven, being a fashion stylist, because she's kind of in such an iconic role. It's a little shocking to me that her style hasn't come back more, because the clothes in this movie are amazing, and the sort of dip peak in her bangs that she cuts, why hasn't that come back as a fashion?
That's a good question. I think also in terms of, it wasn't just Cabaret, but if you look at films from the early to mid 70s, fashion itself was very much interested in Depression era and early war era fashion. So Bonnie and Clyde was another movie that came out in around the same period, give or take 5 years. And that was all about that. It started a whole new fashion craze as well. So a lot of the stuff you see in the 70s, turbans were coming back, bias cut shift dresses were coming back, sort of those glamour pieces from 1930s Hollywood. So it really it worked with, I guess, the fashion zeitgeist at the time. I don't know how much Cabaret influenced it or was influenced by what was already going on, but we haven't had that yet. We had the return to the 70s recently, but it was a kitschy return to the 70s, keep on trucking crop tops and, ironic bell bottoms, but that didn't go any deeper, because the 70s were really the 30s redone and the 20s redone. And so the latest version hasn't really gone that deep. I don't know if fashion is, for any time in the near future, going to go any deeper than just the surface level of, coming back with, let's say, just the very top stuff, like the windbreakers from the 80s or breakaway pants from the 90s. I don't know that it's going to go any deeper than what was just on the surface, but the 70s were very much layered, even though a lot of the stuff that came out in the 70s was ugly. But if you look at the stuff that was coming off the runways, it was all very 1930s and early 40s.
The costumes in this were beautiful, though.
Yes.
They really were. Just everything about even the way the dancers looked, there was something kind of threadbare about it, and a bit poor, right? It wasn't like a high-end Moulin Rouge look or something. It had a very real look to it.
Yeah, and everything was...
Including that strange monkey suit there, was all of
it looked like a cheap monkey suit. Yeah, and they even mentioned at certain points, like Fritz says, I can't go and see her because my cuffs are all frayed because my shirt is old and I'm broke, right? Like there's that he even talks about that. So if you want to get your high class fashion, you have to wait for Marissa Berenson to show up on the screen for tea, while everybody else and they all sit in this really dilapidated room and sip tea that the landlady has brought because Marissa Berenson's important and nobody else there is. And, Sally is sitting there with her green nails and her tawdry, afterglow from her latest assignation. And Fritz is trying to hide his cuffs still. And Brian is just kind of pontificating in an Oxford sweater that's seen better days. And she's wearing a hat, the brim is at least 3 feet across, right? And it actually keeps people away from her. It was kind of a fun little, because that hat is huge.
Was it filmed in Berlin?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I mean, looking at it, it could have been filmed anywhere. It was mostly sets, right? I mean, it was a nightclub set and Brian/Sally's room sets.
Yeah. And then the big mansion.
Right, Max's. But they lived in a very small, contained tiny little world, which,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're doing a show as an actor, you know, if you're working on Broadway,
Yeah.
that tends to happen to you. And if you, you know, just work in a nightclub, that tends to happen to you as well. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was shot in West Germany.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Oh, I did know that because of Fosse Verdon, which is a really great miniseries about Bob Fosse and his
Oh,
wife
and you
Gwen
watched
Verdon.
it. Yeah, and
I
Michelle
watched
Williams.
it. Yes, and Michelle Williams plays Gwen Verdon.
Wow,
I hadn't
that's
thought
funny,
of that.
hey?
That's a full circle moment too.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, if you're interested in the background to Bob Fosse's life and his work, it's actually a really good series. And Michelle Williams knocks that role out of the park.
Well,
as
if we'd
Gwen
had more appetite for musicals, I would have suggested All That Jazz, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not.
But we're not. No,
But
it's
we're not.
okay.
Not.
We're not. No, it's very. It would be very much like doing Cabaret.
Yeah. It's the
Great
same
musical
guy.
numbers,
Yeah.
super depressing.
Yeah.
It's showtime, folks. That's all I'll say.
Bob Fosse was given a lot of praise for the way he shot the movie as well. Because I remember we were talking about Xanadu and how kind of bizarre all the camera angles were, and wasn't able to capture the dance numbers. But Bob Fosse was really lauded for kind of being able to shrink these numbers down on to a small stage and then capture the intimacy, but also fully capture like his choreography on stage as well. So I think, yeah, we've seen the worst of filmed choreography and the best of filmed choreography.
Oh yeah, no, and the dance is amazing. Obviously, I mean, I didn't think of Liza Minnelli as a dancer. Is she?
Well, she was a Broadway baby. Like she'd done Thoroughly Modern Millie before, because she worked with Kander and Ebb before, and I think she worked with Fosse. Did Fosse direct Cabaret on Broadway in '66? I do not remember. I'm having a little pandemic hole in my Broadway brain, but she worked with everybody. She was known as a singer because of working on her mom's show and stuff like that. But then when she went off to have her own career, she did a whole bunch of song and dance. So
Right.
it wasn't a shock. Let's just say when she was cast, no one was like, "Oh, well, that's ridiculous." Like,
No. I was just thinking she wasn't really doing the big dance. Like she had some.
Right. And in this, she's not really doing. That's the whole point of Sally. Is Sally's supposed to? The original Sally could barely sing. She was just. You're supposed to be an awful singer and dancer, technically. What the movie did
'cause
was
she's
make
not-
it a good singer and dancer with Liza.
Oh, okay.
But Sally's supposed to be. She's rotten.
Yeah, she's supposed to be
absolutely
like
awful.
a mediocre
Oh.
talent.
And the movie switched their nationalities. So in the film or in the show, he's British. He's American, and she is British. So the original stage recording is very strange to people who are fans of the movie, because it's a woman with a very she's got a very Kathleen Turner sort of heft to her voice with a British accent singing these songs. And it's going to be a whole bunch of songs you don't recognize as well, because all the book numbers are in there.
I have to say, too, ending it with the two big, I guess, show-stopping, and maybe that's not right to call Tomorrow Belongs to Me a showstopper, because it is such a chilling moment.
Oh, yeah.
And the way he
that
films it and how
song.
long it goes on.
It's so long, and it's the same words repeated over and over again. And
It's
you're-
like
And then
the
they
evil
get stronger
Edelweiss.
and they just keep building and building and building until everyone's like in a frenzy, and you go, "Oh, this is how it happened."
Right, and then they pan down, because in the beginning it's just this cherubic, angelic, blonde little soprano singing high tenor, singing this very innocuous song about nature and stags and bumblebees and all that stuff. And then as they pan down, you see the armband, you see the audience, and then there's that one man who's just looking around going like, these people are insane. And you can tell that he's like a World War I veteran or something along those lines. And he's just like, this is ridiculous. And yet they keep going. And then he does the salute and, oi, right? And then you hear Max's character say, well, I don't like them, but at least they're helping us control the communists.
Yeah.
Right? As the landowning baron. Like, that's his thing. And what he doesn't realize is you can't control this.
I also really like the way that it ended with the Cabaret song, because, and I know what you're saying, that originally Sally Bowles was a bad singer, But just the way they end with that song, how it, for so many years, it has kind of a glamorous feel to it. And then it just seems so sad seeing her perform it at the end. And we realize what she's decided on for her life. Mm-hmm. Also, the most depressing scene is, anyway, people might want to watch it still. But anyway, just we know what she's chosen. When she leaves Brian, she doesn't even look at him. Like, this is my life. It's going to be about trying to break into show business. Mm-hmm. And that song, and just that the film ends on that song, is beyond brilliant to me.
And the way it ends, too, with that sort of just blackout and the drum roll. The way it opened. It's the same way it opened, too.
Yeah. And that pan across all of those faces and the... And again, as the audience member, you know what's coming. Yeah, you do. And also that Egon Schiele, like they keep doing little... Egon Schiele was an artist in Berlin during the Weimar Republic, and Fosse keeps making little montages of famous paintings of Egon Schiele. So you'll notice... I see. That's what those were, right?
Yeah, you'll notice, like, there's a scene that repeats of a woman sitting in the back with glasses and short hair, kind of loose on her chair. That's a famous image. There's another image of two people at a table. That's another famous image of his. So he's showing... Wow. He was calling back to that period's art in so many ways. It was... every time you watch it... I mean, I don't want to be one of those people that says every time you watch it, you find something new, but... every other time you watch it, you might find something new that you're sort of going, I didn't notice that the last time. Because this is, I don't know, I've seen it, I don't know how many times. This is the first time that those little scenes popped out at me, the
interesting.
tableau.
I've noticed but I just thought it was a great effect.
Right. And then, but I think maybe because I got to know Egon Schiele's work more and more over the years. So now I can go, I know what that is.
But just to go back to the depiction of the rise of Nazism for a second that we were talking about earlier, I found it interesting to think about the way it was shown in The Sound of Music compared to this musical. Because The Sound of Music is only 7 years earlier. But it
earlier, you mean later?
The Sound of Music came out earlier than Cabaret.
Okay. Oh, I thought you meant because this is 1931 in Cabaret, and it would have been like 1940 something, right?
It would have been right after the Anschluss, so right after the Austrians were taken over.
So 39, maybe 40.
I'm not good with my Anschluss knowledge, unfortunately.
But somewhere in there. Anyway,
also it's a different situation because it was the Nazis coming to power. By the time they got to Austria, they basically were welcomed into Austria. So Maria and Baron von Trapp were kind of like, that's the way it's going to have to be. Their own people asked them in. So it was, not everybody, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but also just that The Sound of Music is so, like, wholesome in this, it's kind of the polar opposite in musical styles to this.
Whoa,
very much.
Yes, very, very,
but you still have, like, the really nice... unsuspectingly bland blonde boy suddenly becoming a raving Nazi lunatic.
And you get a Max in each movie.
Oh, you do? Well, Germany, right? There's got to be a Max somewhere.
It is interesting that that does seem to be the two movies come into parallel with like Edelweiss and Tomorrow Belongs to Me, like that kind of those singing moments.
And that, as you said, that young blonde boy that represents that Hitler youth.
Yeah.
In both stories. Yeah.
Technically, Rolf isn't even Hitler Youth when it starts, and then he gets, indoctrinated or inculcated, or, whether he believed in it fully or not, we'll never know. The last Pope said he didn't, so because he was a Hitler Youth, because everybody had to be. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So maybe Rolf could one day be, saved from. He probably ended up dying on the Eastern Front.
He's only 17, so
yes, he would have died on the Eastern Front.
Yeah,
probably.
He sure would have. Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been.
There were some red flags there, Liesl. I just want to say. Actually, it was a big flag with a swastika on it.
Yeah, exactly. It was a big red flag. And also the whole you need someone older and wiser by a year telling you what to do, and I just don't know if that would have appealed to me as a young daughter of an Austrian general.
Yeah,
or captain.
Tell you what to do.
Captain.
Exactly, Captain von Trapp. Yeah,
exactly.
You're right. They are completely different. But there was something so, I don't know, it's like a mesmerizing sort of a magic spell you feel when you're watching Cabaret. You feel so involved in this story. And when they go and have their debauched, whatever it was, weekend
at the country house. Yes.
At the country house.
If you introduce a baron in any movie, you must have a country house scene. It goes without saying.
Yes. But that scene, and I thought Bob Fosse was so good at the lingering scenes, the longer ones, like we were saying with that singing. And when they were spinning around in that ballroom, and it's just so perfect.
Yeah, and it was, incredibly. I'd even forgotten we talked about the bisexuality part of it. We talked about, all the things that Fosse was doing that you weren't supposed to put in film. Also, 1972, she unabashedly gets an abortion.
Yeah.
Right?
And then yells, "Oh, no."
Yes. But, like Roe versus Wade didn't happen until 1976. So this was 4 years before abortion was legal across the United States.
Well, apparently it was the first musical ever to be given an X rating.
Oh.
Although it was later re-rated.
You see nothing. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's just...
Ideas can be dangerous on either side, I guess is the point of this.
Wow.
Yeah. It's such a... when you think of musicals, it's not the type of conversation you would expect to have talking about a musical, because musicals are supposed to be fun and life-affirming and all these things. And this one is none... Well, I mean, it's good, but I don't think you could call it fun. It has moments.
No.
And I don't think you could really call it life-affirming because, there's very little affirmation of how great humanity can be and enjoying your life in this particular, I guess maybe the Fritz and Natalia side plot. But it's depressing because what's going to happen to them. Right?
Yes,
He's been living hidden for all this time. He finally comes out as Jewish, marries this woman, that he only went after for her money, but now he really loves her. And that in 8 years, oh boy, if they don't get out to England soon, it's not going to end well for them or their children.
Oh, it's going to be very bad.
Yeah. So these are not the normal things you think of when you think of a musical, right? It's
no.
The stakes are so much higher in this.
But also those musical numbers are amazing. Each one of them. Perfect. Like just such great songs. I think I remember having that album around my house. My mom was pretty enamored with the Cabaret soundtrack,
I remember hearing Cabaret for the first time on a car ride. And I must have been, I don't remember how old I was, but I was in the back seat and it was a long time ago. I was probably fighting cigarette smoke the whole way because my dad would smoke. That was normal back then. And I remember, I think it was on CBC radio. And I just was like, what is this? And I remember saying, Dad, what is this? And he was like, I don't know. It's just a song on the radio. And I remember it hitting me so strongly, right? Which should have been, quote, red flag for a lot of things coming up in my life. But listening to that song, particularly, not even understanding the words, but listening to her voice and the emotion in it and just going, I haven't heard this on the radio before. So that was, I remember that just sticking out to me. And it's a really good song. I may not say it's the best song.
Are we talking about, which one are we talking about?
The big finale.
Oh, the ending, the big finale, yeah. I think my favorite song would be that Maybe This Time.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that.
Which is the one they did on Schitt's Creek too, because it's such a perfect song. And I thought that's why Schitt's Creek was so clever to do this musical, because they could tie so many of the themes from their actual show into, that song in particular, of somebody just like, maybe this is the time that finally it's actually too heartbreaking, really.
And then,
just as a sidebar, like having seen Cabaret and thinking about the Schitt's Creek performance of it, it just makes it more amazing to me.
It does.
Yeah.
So I would say that Cabaret is probably my favorite song from it, and but my favorite book number that it only plays on the Victrola is "Couldn't Please Me More," which is the Pineapple song. It's stuck in my head, since college, since I did the show. So
okay, I'm gonna have to look it up and play it.
Yeah, it's
what did you call it again?
It Couldn't Please Me More, I think, is the actual name, but it's all about getting a pineapple as a gift.
Okay, getting a pineapple. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna look that one because I don't remember it very well from the musical. Most of the songs I knew, like the money makes the. I know that one really, really well. Really, 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 really. No, I'm not allowed to sing. Sorry.
That song is, I've seen that song done also just separately. Like a lot of songs from the movie can easily be extracted from their context and just performed on a stage.
Oh yeah.
Right? And that's another great part about it is, he chose all the stage numbers, not the book numbers, which, strange choice for some. But let's just say that in the last 3 weeks, I've had songs from 3 different musicals stuck in my head at certain points. This is the one that I don't mind having the song stuck in my head for.
Yeah. No, not. You have to believe in magic.
We Are Magic.
You resented that.
Yeah,
We Are Magic,
yes.
right?
And they are not. No.
Yeah. No. That's still haunting me. That musical, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just had a shiver when you said that.
And Cabaret manages to get its point across without a superfluous cartoon section as well.
well,
So
Yeah, none of
Who
it
knew
is
you could do
animated.
that?
yeah, well, Bob Fosse apparently.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
But so as we're coming to the end of our musical series, like why do you think musicals dropped out of popularity? So, like in
In a word, Xanadu in 1981. No,
Really?
it killed. Think of all the musicals, quote unquote, that came out after that. Footloose, Flashdance are considered musicals, but no one performs. It's just soundtracks. And it got rid of the idea of people singing live on, other than Annie, I think came out in 82, 83. But everything for a long time was just kids. It was kids musicals. There was
When
no
did Cats come out? Would that have brought it back?
I don't know if
And Phantom or
I mean, Cats and Phantom, they didn't do the big number versions. They did sort of stage film versions, right? They didn't do the huge.
yeah.
For you to watch the quote movie version of Cats from the 80s, you had to be a huge fan of the Broadway play. You were not going to just go see it because there's nobody you knew in it. And it looked ridiculous. It looked like someone did it on a camcorder of a musical. And it just stood in front of the stage and panned left and right as cats came and went. So, but a big Hollywood movie, it was a long time till you had anything come back that was even considered good. I think might have been Yentl might have been the first to come back.
Or some people say like Moulin Rouge in 2001.
I didn't like that one. I didn't.
We rewatched it earlier in the series and realized that we didn't really like it either.
I remember just liking Ewan McGregor a lot and his
that
performance.
is valid because he's a very likable chap.
Yeah, and I just love the innocence of that. But honestly, Icy Nicole Kidman, I'm almost had enough of for a lifetime. So
I found that the editing too is just like it's not aging well the way that movie was put together. It's just too.
it's a style.
It's too. Yeah, it's a style.
Whereas this movie feels timeless. You could watch this like we did. It feels like weirdly has that gritty 70s realism, but also feels like I imagine what Germany felt like. It felt so real. So you can watch it now. And, like I said, thinking about it from that golden 70s period for filmmaking, but also almost historical for what it must have looked like.
Have you seen that German show on Netflix called Babylon Berlin? It's set in the same period. It looks identical. And
it does.
It could be that they use Cabaret as like source material, but I doubt it since it's a German show. But it's that same sort of grittiness, that sort of dirtiness, it opens with a scene with her getting home from a late night at a club and then just taking a sponge bath in her bathroom while the neighbors come through the bathroom as well. Like that's
I know.
that sort of ickiness that it's there in Cabaret as well. It's very well done.
Dirty and kind of sad and always bumming smokes. Yeah.
No. Do you have a cigarette, darling? I'm absolutely gasping for a cigarette.
I'm absolutely so broke and I haven't bought cigarettes in years.
I'm still waiting for Liza Minnelli's Cabaret look to come in to be huge.
You start it. We'll see how it goes.
Green nail polish.
You can get the haircut.
Yeah, and green nail polish did come back in the 90s with Urban Decay. They had that brand. They had
green
a whole bunch
hair is back now.
Yeah. And so maybe the eye makeup, that sort of Clara Bow over-the-top eye makeup might come back.
Yeah, I was, speaking of Ewan McGregor, watched a little bit of Halston on Netflix. I only watched the first couple episodes. It was okay. But part of it touches on how like Liza Minnelli was one of his muses.
Well, she married him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. They married?
Yeah, she married a whole bunch of gay men.
No, I knew that, but I didn't know she married Halston.
Yeah, weren't they married? And then they got I thought their divorce was like a big deal.
Oh, I didn't get to that part in the
I thought her big divorce, the one that made the big deal, was the Australian singer.
Oh,
he played Hugh Jackman played him on Broadway.
I don't remember his name though. Right,
Peter Allen.
Peter Allen. Yeah, that
Peter
makes
Allen.
sense.
Yeah,
but I think she was also married to Halston as well.
Oh wow!
And Peter Guest.
Yeah, well, yes. Yes. Boy, oh boy. Boy, that's a memory I haven't had in a long time. I don't think I really want it. Bye. So I guess it's now time to say whether or not we think it pops.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. It's
like all the champagne in Max's mansion.
I mean, I haven't watched.
Yeah, this is a classic.
Yeah, I haven't watched every musical. Well, I have at some point or another, but I haven't watched every musical recently in your 11-part series, your exhaustive series. But I would venture that this is probably the best of the 11 that you have seen.
Yes, I would agree with that 100%.
So.
Yeah.
By far, I think.
By far.
It's really, really... And if you liked Chicago, if you're a more recent musical moviegoer, if you liked Chicago, it's slightly more whimsical version of Cabaret, at least the film. So
yes, I think that's fair.
And Chicago was a Bob Fosse thing as well, and it was part of that whole oeuvre of doing really dark musicals. Now, the Hollywood version was a little bit more up and smiley and performance-y, but it's in that same tradition.
So we like to end our episodes on things we recommend. Lisa, why don't you go first?
I am reading a very, well, not like the oldest book in the world, but a book that I finally got around to reading, which is called Jitterbug, Perfume by Tom Robbins.
Oh, wow. That is a blast from the past.
You've read that,
Yeah,
then.
but like,
I know.
Late
I know.
80s?
Yes, of course. Well, it came out in 84.
Yeah, it was like a summer camp read,
written.
I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And anyway, it's just one of those books that I've always intended to read, but I'm on my quest to read 50 books this year, so I'm up to 21.
That's pretty good.
So, yeah, I took a bit of a break there, but yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. It is a weird, wild ride, very dated, I have to say. A lot of things that we revisit go, ooh, boy, that's a bit blah. But anyway, on the overall, I'm going to highly recommend it. I'm about halfway through right now, and I think it's just it's weird. It's like when you read classics, you tend to go back sort of like Jane Austen or something, but not the midway, or like, maybe a Holden, like a J.D. Salinger or something, but having an 80s classic, and that's what it is, right? That it's an 80s classic. So recommending, if you are like me and you've put this off, Tom Robbins' Jitterbug Perfume.
Good one.
How about you, Stephen?
Mine actually ties into a lot of stuff we were talking about today, oddly enough. Firstly, the idea of taking something fun and light and floopy, like musicals, and making them dark, like this exact, and the iteration of mentioning Schitt's Creek 2 or 3 times. I'm a bad Canadian and a bad gay, and that I've never seen a single episode. However, I am enjoying the Kevin Can F himself, starring the beautiful Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek, and we were talking about Schitt's Creek earlier as well. And in it, she plays a sitcom wife who basically is really unhappy, and she lives in 2 worlds. The sitcom world, when her husband's around her, where all the sets are bright, all the colors are bright, it's a sitcom house. And then as soon as he leaves the room, we go back to single camera darkness. And it's her, at this point, I've only seen the first 2 episodes because I don't believe the other 2 have dropped yet. But she's basically gotten to the point where she's planning to kill her husband. And it's really interesting. And the actress who plays her sister-in-law, the hairdresser, who's also a under-the-counter drug dealer in this small town they live in. The performances are really, really good as soon as you get away from the sitcom part of it, and they're supposed to, I assume, be really bad and almost unwatchable as a sitcom. The first episode's a rough ride, but if you can get through it, wow, there's some good stuff on the other side.
I guess you have to get sort of into this conceit and
absolutely
and understand
it. And it's a
yeah.
tough one because the first switch doesn't happen for quite a while, and you're watching a really bad 90s sitcom that's being done over the top to make it even worse. And then suddenly you go, oh, thank God she's angry. Like she should be. But it takes a while, and it takes you a little bit of time to acclimate to, the fish out of water. It's like the audience are fish out of water. Not only is she, but you are too.
And where can you watch this?
It's on AMC, so certain cable
You
providers.
can watch the first 2 episodes on YouTube as well. They decided to put them up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's also on some cable providers. AMC is available in Canada on certain providers. And then if you're in the States, well, it's on AMC. Just your general cable package.
Right.
And then methods.
Okay.
YouTube and other methods that we won't mention.
Methods. I like that. Methods, yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to recommend a show that we actually are going to cover on the podcast in a couple of weeks, Hacks.
Oh,
that I'm
yeah.
watching.
Yes.
It's so funny. I am enjoying it so much. For those of you who haven't seen it, it stars Gene Smart as a legendary Las Vegas comedian who is forced to hire this ambitious young writer played by Hannah Einbinder, who's just so funny young comedian. It's an excellent show, and I highly recommend it. You can watch it on Crave.
Well, that's a lot of work for everybody out there.
Yeah, they've got some
it's
homework
fun
ahead of
work.
them. Books to
Yeah, they
read,
do.
shows to watch,
Yeah.
enjoyment to be
I think-
had.
I think we should do Kevin can because it is such a interesting idea, and
Yeah.
because we love Annie Murphy too.
But it's very dark. It gets dark real fast.
We just did Cabaret. Can it get darker than that?
No, it can't. I don't think so. I think Cabaret's as dark as that'll go. I mean, it can get darker, but between those two, I'd say Cabaret's a little bit heavier.
Yeah, so it's practically just a walk in the park now is what you're saying. All right, then. We got that. All right, and now I can never remember our sign off. You start.
You can rate and review us
There we
5
go.
stars on iTunes, or if you want to send us an email with some suggestions of what you want to see us cover, you can email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. And we'd like to thank me as the producer of the show.
Yeah, I know that part. I know that I'd like to thank Andrea Gin as our producer and co-host, and Stephen Schelling for coming on the show 3 weeks in a row. So I know that
You're such a hero. Thank you so
you're a hockey
much.
fan,
I'm a Habs fan.
and a Canadian.
Yeah, I'm
you're
a
a
Habs
Habs fan. You're a Canadian, so this was a pretty great hat
Yeah,
trick.
and
then.
yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. And they are playing tonight,
But-
so I'll find out very shortly, because we record this in advance. I'll find out very shortly if their dream run to the Cup is over, or if it's continuing.
But they made it to the finals.
And they
mean,
shouldn't
come
have.
on.
I mean, it's so, just take it. It's all cream at this point, right? It's all the cherry
Yeah.
on top.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't
right,
know
well,
how
thanks.
we could have done Cabaret without
No,
you, Stephen.
sure, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And go listen to the Pineapple song. It gets stuck in your head.
I'm going to listen to it right away.
Yeah, it's really
Okay.
good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.